What's up, folks? Here on our yearly backpacking trip, multi-day, and my dad and I have been sheltering and taking cover in the Mountainsmith mountain shelter LT that we have here today. So we're going to give you a really good walkthrough now, having slept in it for 3 nights straight. We've had thunderstorms, rainstorms, wind, sun, the whole 9 yards. So we've had a really good chance to not only test it out here on the mountaintop, but I also did about a week and a half in the backyard under a lot of different conditions, hail even. We'll run in some footage of that. I went through a hailstorm in this thing. Really looking forward to just kind of walking you through a tarp shelter and the pros and cons that it has to offer you today. Okay, so as we look at a couple of the specs here on this tarp tent, there are a couple great things. First off is the weight, the total weight with the tie downs and everything. You're looking at a total trail weight, if you will, of 2 pounds 1 ounce, which is awesome. That's the total weight of this thing, which is great for a 2-man system to give you shelter. Then as we go along here, you have a peak height of 4 feet 6 inches, which is awesome as well. So that's a lot of height for those of you sitting up in the tarp and getting changed and that kind of thing. It's great. Then we're looking at a total overall dimensions of 54 square feet or 5 square meters. Kind of give you some perspective. That's 142 inches long. It's 54 inches high at its highest peak, and it's going to be 84 inches wide from side to side. As well as the fact that this is 40 denier seal nylon, which is not only tough and durable and waterproof. We haven't had any leakage or anything like that. We've been through several storms, not only here on this trail, but also back at home. Let it sit through a couple rainstorms, one hailstorm that was really intense. I sat through it. So, great opportunity to do a little water testing here. We got the 2 tarps out. No, we got hail, we got rain. Kind of see what's going on here. Just so you guys can hear how intense it's been with that hail that we were just dealing with. It's getting thrown this. And didn't have any issues with seepage or anything like that. So not only are you getting tough and lightweight, but you're getting some really good dimensional specs as well. The backpacking trip is over, and the mountain shelter LT goes in this little stuff sack.
And the instructions are right on the outside of the bag how to set it up on the stuff sack. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, the instructions, and I mean it is small. I don't have any tent that's this small. So as I'm talking, I'm going to be running a lot of footage because we had a couple times of being able to set up this tarp tent. And I would definitely recommend, if you are going to get this, do it ahead of time before you get to your first overnighter that you're going to be using this, because it does, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty quick and easy, and one person can definitely do it. But the first, right out the gate, there's some trickiness, and you just kind of know what you're doing. So to set it up in the backyard would be my recommendation. Now obviously you are going to need trekking poles with this. If it doesn't have trekking poles, it's not going to be able to be stood up. And usually what it takes is about 5 to 10 minutes for me. And they give you measurements along the sides, as we talked about, to get the peaks where they need to be, to stake out what needs to be staked out. They got the guidelines, they got all the things that you're seeing here. And it's obviously easier with 2 people. It is a 2-man system. 1 man can absolutely set it up. And again, that's where the practicing will help with that. So we have multiple tie-off points. It's really good heavy-duty nylon. The stitching is all really good because this is all tension-based. So you're going to have multiple all the way around the tent. And just keep that in consideration. Depending on the ground and the soil you're going to be around, if you can't stake this out, it's useless. You can't use it. So it's not a freestanding tarp. You've got to be able to stake it down. So just take that in consideration when you're thinking about the terrain that you're going to be camping in. But the nylon itself and the stitching is all fantastic, holding up really well under that really tight tension that you need to have for the tarp tent to stand up properly. All right, so we're gonna look at the guidelines here. They come with 5 on the tarp. I really like it because it's good, quality nylon here. And it's got its own locking system, so I can easily just lift and that loosens it. And then all I have to do is pull down and it locks it into place. I don't have to do any type of knots or any goofing around, and cinch it to the perfect tightness and tension that I'm looking for. Just kind of cinch it down a little bit more and then we're good to go. And you'll get that on 2 sides and on the rear of the tent. So I really like that little quick system, just eliminates time when you're trying to set up the tent. So there's 2 options when you're opening this and you want to get in the interior of the tent. Tarp, obviously you unzip it all the way. You can roll this guy up. I got 2 roll attachments. So that's the normal way that you would want to do it, particularly if you are concerned about weather conditions, so that when you're ready to zip it up for the night, you just unfold it. But if you're not really concerned about it too much, you want to maybe see the stars at night or just have a lot more airflow, and you're not concerned about bugs or anything else like that, there's a second way that you can do that. All you need to do is pull up the stake, and this is your secondary door. It also has 2 roll-offs or tie downs for the door. And now you have a lot more flow through, and you can kind of have it almost as like an actual tarp kind of A-frame setup if you wish. So the ventilation system on this tarp tent is front and back. So on the rear of the tarp, we have this little vent hood right here to protect from the rain. It's got a little kind of stiff piece of Velcro, so you could close that up if you needed to, and then it's got that little vent down there. So it's gonna keep the rain and weather out, but give you a little bit of that ventilation out the back. And on the front here, there's 2 sets of zippers. So as you can see, it's already zipped up and all, weather tight, but they've kind of given you this extra little hood right here with an extra top zipper. So I could unzip the whole thing this way if I want to, if I know the weather's not gonna be bad, but I still want a little bit of the shelter. I could open it big. Last night we had it raining really hard on us for about 30 minutes. We opened it to right about here, and it protected us, didn't get any rain splatter in there, and then you're able to get that flow through ventilation from front to back. So obviously there's no ground cover for this system. Now we've done Tyvek. You'll see that when you see a building going up, it's really lightweight and really waterproof. In fact, I'll have a link in the description below. That's just a great footprint for any tent, tarp, whatever. But it's things to think about, because I have a blow up mattress. It's super comfortable. This is the Static V Lux from Climate. Fantastic. This is like sleeping on my own bed. It's amazing. But I have to have this Tyvek in order to keep it from possibly getting punctured on the ground or whatever. So if you are going to do this, it'd probably be best to think through your mattress and to have a foam mattress of some kind, so you're not worried about punctures and that type of thing, and not worry about blow up. It'll mean less maintenance and less time setting up the ground cover. So things to consider when you are purchasing this tarp tent. One thing to consider is the condensation. Now with any tent, if you put a rain cover on it, it may have a mesh roof, but then you throw your rain cover on it, you're gonna get a ton of condensation most of the time, depending on weather conditions, on the interior of your tent when you wake up in the morning. The same is true for this tarp tent, but unlike a normal tent, there's no mesh in between. So when you get up in the morning on the nights that we've had here and we wake up, there's condensation on the inside of this tarp tent, and if you touch the top of the tent and the sides, you're gonna get your clothing wet right away, or if you bump it, some will fall down. So that happens regardless, and it would happen the same with most tents, except that you have that little mesh barrier there to kind of protect from you actually getting wet yourself most of the time. So that is another thing to consider. It's a trade-off with just having the tarp cover versus having that dual layer that you get on most tents. So just be aware of that, because it can kind of feel sometimes, trying to like play an operation, trying to get yourself out of the tent in the morning without bumping the sides and getting your clothes wet, or maybe having some fall onto your sleeping bag. So things to consider when we're talking about using this tent on a regular tarp tent on a regular basis. Okay, so when we talk about price, that's a huge selling point. As my dad and I were discussing, we've been using this tarp tent for this backpacking trip. $100 is the going rate on average for this on Amazon. We'll have links in the description below, so if you're liking what you see here, use those links. That's a great way to help support the channel. But for $100, you are getting this 2-man, 2-pound, if you will, tarp tent, that has a lot of space, a lot of room, and it's at a screaming deal. And to get an actual freestanding tent of similar size and dimensions, I mean, we're talking, you know, $300 easy that's out there on the market. So that's a great deal. Now, always think that you're gonna have to have the trekking poles, so you may already own those, but if not, you know, usually about $50-$60. Mountainsmith has some great trekking poles available. So really, you know, it would be $160 total, but for the tarp itself, if you already have the trekking poles, $100. Awesome. So folks, in conclusion, I'll kind of give you my final thoughts on who would best be suited to get the most out of this Mountain Shelter LT. Now, I think that for those of you who like a tent, you like the ground cover, you like all those aspects, this may not be quite up your alley if you don't really mind the weight of a tent. For those of you who are ultralight backpackers and you're worried about every single ounce, you want to cut it down to as minimal as possible, and you want a lot of room to be able to move around, have 2 people possibly, maybe a dog, whatever it is, and you're on a tight budget, this thing is phenomenal. And you don't mind that lack of ground cover and some of the things that we've discussed in the review because of how lightweight it is. $100, I mean, it's like mind-blowing. We were talking about, my dad and I, we were like, I don't know how they sell this for $100, but $100, and it does have a lot of space, and you know, you don't have to spend $400 on some ultralight tent, you know, to cut down on the weight. So great price, ultralight, but you are going to sacrifice the ground cover and some of those other things that we've discussed. So that, I hope, will help you guys with your decision making on whether or not this tarp tent is going to be right up your alley, or if you'd rather stick with a tent. As always, thank you so much for checking out the channel. Please subscribe, comment, like, share this video. Love to hear your guys' thoughts. And as always, remember, stay equipped, stay prepared. We'll see you out there.